Hey guys, it's Team Junkyard Dog here today, and we're going to be talking about Big G. That's right, this is our OG bot that we actually started having our first success with in the Beetle class. He has gained a reputation as a heavy hitter and a hard hitter, and he never, well, mostly never disappoints. Usually if he disappoints, it's something that we did, but the bot is pretty much just a rock solid design, and I can't say necessarily that it's an original design because how many two-wheel drive egg beaters are out there? So what I wanted to do in this video, we are prepping for St. Lucie this coming weekend, and we're bringing Big G there, and we're making some modifications and actually updating him for the first time in a couple of years to try to make him more competitive, because after St. Lucie next weekend, where we're going to try all of our new mods, in April we're going to the NHRL for our very first trip. And I thought about bringing a different robot, but Big G has drug us along for so long, I felt like he deserved his shot at NHRL, and so we are bringing him and Drum Gun. So let's go ahead. We're going to point the camera down. I'm going to kind of show you how he's set up now, and then we're going to go into some of the changes that we're making. All right, so here's Big G in all his glory, nice and nude. Now you can see that these wire protectors for the brushless drives, one of them is snapped off on this side. This was a design given to us from Andy at Palm Beach Bots. So we want to thank him for that. He designed these. They just slip over the motors and they keep all these wires from coming forward. Now these wheels are one of the new modifications. We traditionally only ran foam wheels on Big G, but we're hoping to upgrade his traction. So we'll go over those in just a moment. Also, you'll notice that the sides, this is his newer armor package made out of TPU. Traditionally, we ran this green material right here, and people always ask us, hey, what is that very super durable green plastic that you run on Big G to protect his wheels and his backside? Well, it's from a trash can. That's right, somebody was throwing out an old trash can. They call us Junkyard Dog for a reason, so we cut it up and cut it all, all the flat panels out of it basically, and we've been using that for Big G and some of our bots for armor and plating, and it has worked very, very well. If you know Big G, you'll know in the past the armor used to kind of bow out like this around the wheels, and it was just a strip of this material that we screwed on, bent around, and then screwed it back on in the front. So it was about time that we came up with this addition here and actually using TPU for armor, because it's not feasible just to be going out and buying trash cans to cut them up. So as that material ran out, we had to come up with different solutions. Now for the longest time, Big G has ran the FingerTech motors, the Mega Sparks, and you can see how one of the problems with Mega Sparks, we've done such a good job of protecting the wheels on this robot that it was rare that we ever actually lost a drive motor. So we actually drove these things to basically till they were falling apart. You see how much wobble and how loose, maybe you can see that or not, but you can see how loose that is. And it's not because I didn't use Loctite, it's just because the screws have been tightened so many times, they no longer have threads in them. And we've actually ran a competition with it wiggling like that. And that's one of the reasons why Big G has had mixed success. As recently as the last Tampa event, he took first in Beetles, and then at Makers Fair, and this last event he was in, he only got 1 out of 3 wins. So was it the robot's fault? No. Was it our fault for lack of maintenance and just throwing the robot together without any upgrades and throwing it into a fight? That's the real reason. That's the point of this video. We're going to get into some of the changes. Now this is one of the newer sides of Big G. We have a Snapmaker 3-in-1. It's the CNC laser and 3D printer, and we can now CNC these out ourselves now. Before it was just block cut HDPE. It's not UHMW. We actually use HDPE, and I had a bunch of this material left over from I don't know, like 2011 or 12. I had a boat built for my my commercial dive business, and I took all the extra scraps and spares, and I just had stacks and stacks of this stuff because it was a very big boat. And this is basically what we've been running since we've been fighting robots since 2018. But now we can actually CNC it, and this is what his actual chassis sides look like now. This is going to be the new setup for the drive. We are going with the Repeat Pros, the square ones. They're supposed to be extremely durable. They're actually just a tad bit lighter than a Mega Spark, and more power, more torque, which is always an added bonus. Now this, I had a bunch of these sides already pre-cut out, so all I basically did was I went into CAD and I made this little template that is the size of the Repeat Pro, and I'm just sticking them in the chassis sides that I have, because on the other side is the same diameter, the 24 millimeters of the drive motors, and I'm just basically cutting that circle out by hand so I can fit the new motors in. And I'm just going to do that until I run out of these chassis sides, because I don't want to just throw away 6 or 8 of these chassis sides. So I'm just going to modify the ones that I have until they're done, and then I'll change the CAD and we'll start CNCing that part out. And then to actually, this is a prototype plate that we drew in CAD as well, to actually mount these on this side of the motor. Now Drum Gun, Carter's 3-pounder that he's fighting now, he's actually cutting this part into his chassis, so it's actually part of his chassis, so he doesn't need a motor mount plate. I like doing it separately, and this is one of the ones that we actually cut it out of. It's a CNC carbon fiber, and I'm actually cutting these out of a 2 mil carbon fiber. Now, to get kind of into the electronics, because let me talk about this part first. The weapon motor that we've been fighting for probably since 2020 is a 10-shock motor, and it's really big in the RC world, especially with like RC boats. This motor is a 5250 kV motor, and it has a ton of torque, but it uses a ton of power. It will pull an 1100 mAh battery, and we run 4S. It will pull that battery down in 90 seconds if you run the weapon wide open. So we have to be really conservative with our weapon speed so we're not left dead at the end of a match. But it is a 29 millimeter can, and I just put them in the lathe, and I'll turn them down 1 millimeter just so they fit into the fingertip clamp. And I was talking about the torque a minute ago. This motor has so much torque that if we've had the bearings lock up on our beater bar before, and it would grab the bolt, and the torque was enough that it would just start spinning the bolt with the bar locked onto it, and it would actually saw through the side of our chassis with the heat. We got to a point that we had to end up changing the bearings in the beater bar every other match just so that wouldn't happen. So lots of torque, very powerful. I'm going to go ahead and get into some of the electronics. We just have been running, as far as drives go, just your run-of-the-mill base 20 amp brushless ESCs. Now this is like probably if you buy through Fingertech, I think we bought ours from Palm Beach Bots. We pretty much get 90% of our parts from Palm Beach Bots, except for things that we have custom that only we use and it's not readily available. But these are the BL Heli 20 amp brushless ESCs. We are going to be ditching those drive ESCs, but we're going to start using this right here in Big G, which is, like I said, from Repeat Robots, and it's a 2-in-1. So you connect this, of course, to your receiver, and you can connect up both drives onto the same board. It's really not going to save a whole lot of room, but being that this is AM32, we're going to get much better control, and it's something that's way more modern and probably going to produce more power than what these other drive ESCs were actually giving us. So I'm excited to see how G does with this. Now for weapon ESC, this is actually a prototype in here that Repeat Robots sent us to test out. It's an 80 amp ESC. He might have it out by now. It's not like it's top secret or anything like that, but it's a good bit lighter and smaller than what the 60 amp that we were running, and I'm going to show you what we've been running in Big G for years in just a moment. But I got to get the tape off of this because I've been testing this in our box. I used it in our fight against Drum Gun in our own box. But this is what that ESC looks like. I don't have all the specs and details on it yet, but I'm sure they'll be available soon. But what we did run, let me find one. Got stuff everywhere. Here's one of them anyway. We have been running the Castle Talon 60. This has been a tremendous ESC. It takes the heat, it's taken the abuse. It is only 60 amp, and Big G happens to pull 60 amps on the nose when wide open. We haven't had any brownout issues. It's been great. The downside to this, these are about $80 a piece, and they're huge. They are quite large in comparison to this other ESC. The board size looks similar, but the footprint is much smaller. So I'm excited to move on to this, and let's not even think about the weight difference. Maybe I'll do a direct side-by-side comparison because this one is probably about half the weight of this. Now, if I can get to the wheels, I'm going to show you the wheels that Carter designed me. In case you don't know, Carter is much better at CAD than his dad, and that's why we make such a good team, because I'm better with the machines and doing the CNC work, and he's way better at doing the CAD work and the designs. I do the basic shapes. Carter's doing entire robots. So what we're trying with this is actually speed this up. There you go. That's our self-made side armor. It looks quite a bit like Food Fighters, but you know, it's square armor that goes around the wheel, so there's not a lot of room for imagination there. I just wanted to give Ari a little credit with that statement. But this is the wheel that we're going to be running. It is a TPU wheel. It does have these little suspension rings, and we did design it with a cutout on the inside to accommodate the repeat hub. So if I need to change wheels, of course I can just remove this ring right here. I got to break all this down anyway. I got to completely rebuild this in the next 4 days. Pop this off. This is the hub we're using. It's the version 2, I believe. It's got like the 4-star pattern, and then this is how we made our wheel. So it just fits perfectly over that. And then we did pour the urethane. Now this one came out a bit heavy, and you can see we got a little messy with the urethane. So I probably am going to have to lighten this up a little bit. And if I can't get it light enough, then it's going to be a foam wheel with the urethane poured around it. And you know, it is what it is. But I'm hoping to save enough weight to where I can actually run these wheels, because in testing it drives very, very, very well with these wheels. Now the business end of Big G is this beater bar. We have 3 of these. We've been running them ever since I don't know, last 3 years, or probably 2022 maybe, I think at the latest. And this bar was actually designed by Seth Schaefer. He did a video called How to Design a Beater Bar. A lot of people saw that one. I knew nothing about CAD at that time, so I contacted him and asked him if he could make that same bar fit FingerTech running gear, and so he did. And so I bought the design from him. That's not to say that anybody can't copy it or use it. That's just how we came up with this bar. And the bar is very, very heavy. It actually weighs about 13.4 ounces bare. So once you add the bearings and the pulley, you add a little bit to that. The downside to this bar is the fact that it has the same reach as a FingerTech beater bar. So it's only about 2.5 inches, but it is asymmetrical. But I mean, your reach is not even that, you know. I'm not going to measure it, but that's not a whole lot of reach. But the other downsides to this bar are the fact, let me get one that's out of the robot. This is what it looks like, bare. But you can see that right there. Maybe, maybe not. See how that screw is broken off in there? This uses FingerTech screws. And I think it's like an 8/32 or something. But if your pulley gets a little bit loose, it shears those screws off on big hits, especially if you're upside down or your opponent is upside down. And it shears those things off. So you can't use any kind of Loctite, because if you use Loctite, you can't get them out this way. And the other bad thing about the way this is designed is this hole goes into the counterweight, as to where this hole goes inside right here. So you can get on the back side of this one to get it out if it snaps off. If this one snaps off, it's just in a hole. And it's really, really, really hard to get that out. And not to mention that you can see I ran a bead on this whenever I ordered them and they were sent to me. I don't know whose fault it was, but they were not balanced. So I actually had to run a bead on it and balance them. But they're extremely balanced now, so it's all good. So there you have it, my quick overview and close look at Big G. As far as like the upgrades that I mentioned, he's getting new wheels, he's getting new drive ESCs, he's getting new drive motors. I'm actually going to drop the weapon motor from a 5150. I just got a brand new 4850, which is still way too much, but I'm going to run that. I'm still using FingerTech pulleys, funny enough, and I'm using extra wide belts. They're the exact width. I think they're 8mm belts. Some people run wider belts than that, but the 8mm wide has been enough for me. And overall, I'm excited to see what Big G is going to do in the coming weeks. If you have any questions or comments, just let me know what you think. What kind of changes would you make to this robot? He might be up for retirement here soon after Norwalk, but it just depends on how he does. And it's not because he's not a good bot and not effective, but I just get bored easily and I want to try to build like a different type of bot. Like, you know, I'm thinking about a thwack bot. I'm thinking, you know, kind of like a Thagomizer style 3-pounder. We still want to do a hammer saw. We want to do a vert, almost like an in-game style bot as well. And that's what keeps it exciting and fun for us, is trying new things and trying different things. It's not being stuck with one design and just fighting the same thing over and over. I think that's half the fun for most of us. It's just the constant evolution and changes. So very cool indeed. Well, like I said, any comments, any questions, drop them down below. And until next time, we're Team Junkyard Dog, and we're out.